Hey, how's it going? It's Sid Greenwood, and for my Project 2 research phase, I did terrain generation and then pathfinding generation for Unity NavMesh agents through that generated terrain. First, my work's kind of credited here. On the left, first I had a video series that went through procedural generation for a grid, and then secondly, I found a video that helped describe how link generation works between nav meshes. And then on the right, there were two sites that I was able to get helper scripts essentially that made a lot of things easier. One was a link mover that essentially makes agents behave more humanoid, like they actually jump with a curve to their momentum instead of just zipping on a straight line over a jump. And then the next one was a discussion forum where I found a link to a helper script that you attach to a navmesh surface that creates a bunch of links automatically, because it turns out Unity's auto generation feature for links only generates paths one way downwards. For some reason, they don't think AI needs to go upwards at all. So first, there was the terrain generation itself. Here's an overview real quickly of kind of the different terrains you can get. I'm going to go ahead and hop in editor and show you that. Okay, so in editor here is the floor generator. On the right, there's a few settings. First, there's the ground. So I have a few different tile prefabs. This uses a 3D array, so it can handle different tiles of different sizes. They each have a height and width along with the tile origin. So this could also handle game objects that are placed like at the root, like the center of the game object versus, like the base of the object, how, some assets come in packages and etc. But anyways, there's ground prefabs and then settings for the size of the floor in each lateral direction. For the walls, same deal with the prefabs, and then we can set a height, a noise threshold, and then a threshold gain. And then of course we have fauna as well, so that's kind of like just like a mock tree placement that also follows along with the noise. So I have it set to animate in play mode here. So so it should start iterating through, and as I make changes, you'll kind of see what things do. So first there's the height on the wall. So as we increase that, it'll get higher. When we have the height, we can then add a noise threshold. So the noise pattern, just a Perlin noise that's being generated from a random position, will then kind of cut out a pattern into the blocks. From there, we can add this threshold gain per height. Essentially what this is doing is it's chiseling away the edges. So the more aggressive this threshold gain is, the more aggressive things are chiseled away. If we were to have an insanely high threshold, and like a low gain, you'd probably get a lot of spikier environment. If we do something like this, pillars. Other than that, one thing I haven't shown off yet would be the fauna generation. So there that is, and that follows a threshold as well, so you can scale that. This should give us a lot more, and then if we bring it up, it'll give us a lot less. And yeah, from there, you can get a lot of varied environments. Adjusting this noise scale makes some of the biggest global changes. Higher scales, you get very kind of plateau-y terrain, and then if you make the scale really small, you get kind of spiky terrain. But yeah, back to the docks. Now, after the terrain generation, I wanted to go ahead and try and see if I could get some pathfinding going through the terrain. I have a game that I'd like to implement some of this work into, and just generally, I feel like if you have a bunch of terrain generation, besides something for an environment, you're probably going to have a lot of figures moving through environments, so it's important to have a way to get through the environment after you generate it. So here is what a fully ready environment looks like. Essentially, you have layers. So I take one layer, which is the first set of noise that I get generated from an environment. I then take the generator and invert the noise right here, which gives us a flip. Essentially, that inverted noise is what these kind of shallow ground sections look like. And from there, the two areas, you can kind of just tweak the settings in the agents, like which areas they can traverse and etc. But a big problem, again, as I described in the slides, was creating these links. However, this right here, this auto placer solved all that. You plug into link prefabs and it goes ahead and based on the tiling settings and kind of settings of like, the jump height and distance for the agent and some other debug information, it creates all these links. And I'm going to go ahead and play the scene so we can see the agent in action here. And so now in a kind of more difficult terrain setting, we can go ahead and see the extent of that pathfinding generation. The target is this cube here, and then the agent is down below. So we'll update that target. See what they decide. Now, obviously it's not perfect, so if we go ahead and check on these links, there's a lot of spots here where you'd think a connection might be made and it isn't. But for the most part, they do a really good job of finding their way through the environment. Now I'm probably going to speed it up here, but if we take the target and move it, make their way around. And other than that, here is one other environment I kind of created to showcase real quick. This is using 2 layers of noise inverted to kind of get this paw print or crater effect in an environment. But beyond all of that, for the creative phase, I hope to go ahead and plug all of this into an actual working game with some AI that's already been set up. I have kind of this like wall tower defense game that I've been creating on the side, and it has that big open field that's really flat. And now with this generator tool, I think I go ahead in and start making some levels and debugging and getting some kind of quality of life improvements for the generator. And along with that, I'd like to make it more performant. It is kind of made for generating levels in editor, so you don't need runtime performance, but there are definitely some quality of life things and some ways to reduce how many game objects are being spawned and then how I'm managing them like with something like a hash map and some other things I've been researching. Any questions?